Pauli was raised in Durham, North Carolina, raised a devout Episcopalian, and her aunts raised her to be exactly who she was. And from a young child, she knew that she was different. And one of the main ways she knew that she was different was that she knew she was in love with women. Growing up in the 20s, that was not an easy thing. She also, what we would have called today, would have identified as transgender. She really believed she was a boy in female garb. She always referred to herself as her, even though today that might have been different. She went to New York City to finish high school because she couldn't get the education she wanted in Durham. And while she was there during the Depression, she went to a women's CCC camp in upstate New York, where she met the first of several girlfriends who also worked at the camp. While at the CCC camp, she also met Eleanor Roosevelt, who came through on a tour. They started a pen friendship, letters throughout their life. They visited each other's homes, and Eleanor became like a second mother to Pauli. This also gave Pauli an entree into the typewriter in which she wrote all the time to FDR. Now, many presidents got her letters, but FDR was the one who got the poison pen, shall we say, and always about the life of Black people in America and also Black women, especially in America. On a bus ride back from Hunter College in New York City to Durham, she and a friend rode a bus, and in Virginia were told at a stop that they had to go to the back. They refused. This was 20 years before Rosa Parks refused. They were arrested, and it was that moment that changed her life and called her to call herself Jane Crow. Now, this is before the term intersectionality, but this is what that is, because she knew the life of Black women was doubly hard than anyone who was male or anyone who was white. That launched her into a law career that began at Howard University. As the only woman, she was not allowed to speak at Howard for her first year. So what did she do? She became top of her class, and then she spoke to everybody, including another faithful Episcopalian, Thurgood Marshall. They're both on the calendar of saints for the Episcopal Church, by the way. And Thurgood Marshall later on would finally recognize and tell people that his entire basis for his argument of Brown v. Board of Education came from Pauli's senior thesis at Howard. She also was an incredible writer. She decided early on to write a semi-autobiographical book about her family called Proud Shoes. Because how does this person exist in the world at that time, fully embodied as herself, pushing over every single boundary? At her first law firm, Pauli met the love of her life, Irene Barlow. They began by going to services together at St. Bartholomew's, having lunch in New York City, and they fell in love. And they spent the better part of 2 decades as partners with one another. During that time, JFK called Pauli to be on his Commission for Women, where she met Betty Friedan, who she would later partner with to organize the National Organization of Women. She was also a member of the ACLU. When, sadly, Irene died, Pauli recognized she was being called into a deeper calling in her faith. So what did she do? She became the first Black woman to be ordained in the Episcopal Church. Her first Eucharist was done at Chapel Hill, in Chapel of the Cross at Chapel Hill, going back to the church she was baptized in, by the way. All this time, Pauli kept writing. She kept collecting her papers. She taught at Brandeis University. All of her papers were kept, and finally, they were compiled into a library. Now, if you saw On the Basis of Sex about RBG, this woman, Sharon Washington, played Pauli Murray. It's a very small bit part that's in RBG's apartment when there's a moot court being done for a practice, right? RBG insisted on being in the documentary made about Pauli Murray. My name is Pauli Murray, and it was the last interview she ever did before she passed. And she wanted everybody to know what an inspiration and how everything pivots around the type of stuff that Pauli did. One of the colleges that rejected Pauli over time, Columbia University, Chapel Hill, Yale, now has, because she gave them her papers, now has the Pauli Murray Center. One of the colleges is named after her. And so now students are going, her name emblazoned over the top of the library, and her work is still being used. In the landmark case of the ACLU fighting for LGBT rights, Chase Strangio used her work, went back into the library at Yale and used her work. People are still gaining rights because of Pauli Murray. Pauli Murray's home place in Durham, this is literally the house that she grew up in, is now a museum just opened this year. Not only a museum, it's a training center. Young people are being trained in civil rights. Young people are getting to know the life of Pauli Murray. She is a personal saint of mine. And the thing is, Pauli Murray is a North Carolinian. And I hope by the end of this, you'll want Pauli Murray to be your saint as well. Thank you very much.